Hello, everybody, and welcome back to You Exchange, the podcast where I exchange my user experiences to change them, and yours for the better. I'm Jeremy, a mentor and senior user researcher with over 8 years of experience and a background in neuroscience. Throughout my career, I've had the privilege of engaging with hundreds of users around the world, spanning across Europe, the USA, Africa, and India. This has allowed me to deliver actionable insights that have improved user experiences with nutrition, automotive, delivery, and e-commerce sectors. I've created this podcast with the aim of providing my mentorship and educational content, offering actionable tips, knowledge, and guidance in the realm of research, specifically focusing on UX research to anyone having an interest in this area. And I hope that you will find this episode insightful. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the show. So, I'm really pleased to be back for a 3-episode series dedicated to desk research. In this first episode, I will share my insights related to what is desk research in UX research, but mostly any kind of knowledge work. In my opinion, we should run desk research, but I will talk more about this later. So, about the what is it, then why is it important to run desk research before any project? When should you run it? And what resources do you have at your disposal to run desk research? In the second episode, I will run you through a step-by-step guide on how you can approach desk research to make the most out of it. And in the last episode, the third one, I will give you my tips, techniques, and tools to synthesize, present, and share your findings that you had through desk research, right? But let's start. So today I will first start by telling you about what is desk research. Desk research is also called sometimes, although I do not completely agree with the naming, but sometimes it's also called literature review. So literature review, in my opinion, is part of desk research. Let me be a bit more clear. So desk research is any type of research, as the name implies, that you would run at your desk. Meaning, if we consider user experience research, primary research is the research we run when we interact with people, when we ask them questions. So I will craft an interview guide, I will interview people, I will ask them questions, I will analyze the answers, and I will prepare a report and share my findings. So this is what we call primary research because you are the first person to get your hands on the data and you are the responsible for it before synthesizing and sharing it with any person who has a stake in this research, right? So that's the first, that's primary research. And then we have what we call desk research or secondary research, which is in a way also a type of research. So that exists in all the different methodologies we have at our disposal when we run research. But it's called secondary because you're not the first one who is making the research per se, meaning speaking with users or in any other kind of field, doing some analytics, doing some social economics, behavioral economic studies, and so on. So you're not the one gathering the results and you're not the one analyzing them. So someone else did the research and you review this research and then you report it. So you would tell me, what is the use of that? Well, at first sight, it doesn't seem it's very useful to just repeat what someone else said, but it's not a one by one, let's say, report. Of course, desk research or secondary research is meant to be done as a synthesis. So it's a way for you to get your hands on way more information in a reduced amount of time and to not reinvent the wheel. That is the main reason why we use desk research. And just before I move on with the why and with the main reason, literature review is a part of desk research. Literature review means you will review the existing literature. So you will read some articles, but it's literature in itself, so it's written articles. But desk research is not only that. I will speak more about that when it comes to what are the resources you have at your disposal to run desk research. But literature review is only a part of it. So that's why I most often prefer to call it desk research or secondary research rather than literature review. So now about the why. So as I was telling you, desk research is a really economical way to get your hands on data and to not reinvent the wheel. So for me, it's double savings because it means you're not spending your time preparing a research, doing the research, analyzing the answers, and crafting a report, and so on and so forth, to then realize someone else had already done it, whether it's in the company you're working in or anywhere else in the world. Because sometimes you can find some research studies that have been conducted by other people who, which in the end could apply and could be really useful for your scenario, for your context. So either you're in the private sector or public one, fundamental laboratories, or whatever the context, secondary research allows you to build on the shoulders of giants and to avoid to repeat the same research. And that also implies the same mistakes, for instance. So it allows you to build on top of what was already done. So for me, it should be the first place where we should start any research project for several reasons. In my opinion, whether you're a researcher or someone else who is close to a researcher, so you can be, for instance, a data analyst, you could be a designer, you could be a product manager. If you don't have, let's say, the luxury to have a researcher at your disposal who would run this kind of research, it would be great if you can still carry a bit of research yourself, because anyone can do that, secondary research. I sometimes think that primary research depends on some skills. You need some skills to run primary research. You need to be empathetic. You need to know how to build your question so that it's not biased. You need to be able to analyze the answers and not lead the participant into saying what you want to hear. But secondary research is really, really accessible to anyone. It's just about picking up past research done internally or externally, reading it, extracting the key information, synthesizing it in a report, and sharing that. So really, it's really accessible to anyone. And in my opinion, the savings you can generate and the opportunities you can have access to are priceless, are limitless, basically. Because you're not spending money, you're spending only maybe time. Yes, this, I agree, you can be spending time reviewing research, but I will share later my techniques so that you can save time and doing it at almost no cost, including sometimes the use of AI. But basically, this is a really economical way to get access to data using the internet or other resources online and building on top of that. So then, if you're a designer, why would you be interested in desk research? So basically, imagine you have been tasked to make a prototype. Well, probably you should know, okay, why are we doing this prototype? What was done before? Was it working? Was it not? And why? What were the previous insights that were given in past studies? And were they implemented in the prototype? Why or why not? If you're a researcher and you need to run a research, you need to make sure, has this research already been conducted and not being implemented? And why, if this is the case? Because if it's the case, you can just report the past research and say, okay, guys, we can probably now take action, or maybe do some follow-up research on something else, but not redo the work, because this would be absolutely pointless. So if you're a researcher, that would be your added value. And if you're a product manager, I believe that it would still be useful for you to get your hands on some past research to agglomerate all of the data and the past studies that you have at your disposal. If you have a research at your disposal to do that, even better. But basically, also looking into the best practices in your area, surrounding your feature, for instance. What would be, yes, the best practices to follow? What are the competitors doing? What went well in the past in the industry? What went wrong and why? So these are all the kind of things that are golden information that we have access to. So it's just about spending a bit of time and trying to centralize this information and to build on top of that. And so now, practically speaking, what are the benefits? So I mentioned to you the benefits in terms of roles, if you're a researcher, if you're a designer, and of course, I'm speaking about user experience, but this can also translate to other disciplines. So you can be a researcher and you can be pairing with an engineer, for instance. It can be other kinds of jobs, of course, that right now at the top of my head I'm not thinking about. But imagine you're a YouTuber and you want to improve your audience. So probably you should look into what have you done before that went well and what went bad in terms of your performance. Having a bit of a retrospective. So it's really that anyone can do it at a scale of any in any context, I would say, even personal. It never hurts to do a bit of digging when we are about to make a big decision or take action on something, and to look for more information to make an informed decision. And so it's even more important in a professional context where sometimes a lot of money is at stake. So that's the main benefit, because it would allow you to save probably on mistakes, on time, and on costs if you make some mistakes, and if you redo something that was already done and, for instance, never worked. But then in terms of any kind of project, when you start a project, what could be the benefit? Well, if you're a researcher and you have been tasked to start a project, well, basically you need to know, what do we know about this current area? So probably imagine we want to introduce a new feature inside our app, which would be a subscription, a subscription for daily and weekly insights for our spending habits. Okay, and imagine you're an online banking system, but you didn't have this feature, but you're seeing your competitors have it. So probably you think, okay, that would be great for us. What you could do is just think, okay, what do we know about the behaviors of our customers? What are their pain points? What are their expectations? What are their mental models? What have we done in the past that could indicate that this would be a great feature? Or what haven't we done as well? Maybe we lack some knowledge, but we cannot jump straight ahead into building some features without knowing what we have already done, what we have already at our disposal, basically. And so as a researcher, if you're tasked with running some research on any kind of project, so imagine another example that I have been faced really often is I arrive at a company, or maybe in a team, or maybe I jump in a project. So I can be at a company for like 5 years, but still I jump in a new project and I am tasked with evaluating the success, or to what extent an interface is user-friendly for my users, and if it's usable, let's say. So imagine you're working on a delivery app and you want to know, well, probably we could improve the support system. We could improve the help center, how it works, and so on and so forth. So we have improved this feature, this part of the app, and now, well, we think we have improved it, and we are tasking you as a researcher to make a usability study on that to prove if it has really improved. Okay. But as a researcher, you would need to know, what do we know already about our app? Because some decisions have been made in terms of design. What led to these decisions? What was the rationale before that? What were the studies done before that showed that, okay, we should probably change the information architecture? we should probably change the navigation or the copy. Okay, so I will review all the past research that we have done inside the company, for instance, and probably maybe a bit outside as well. That's then the next section. I will cover what are the resources you can cover. But basically that is what I will do. And then I will be able to have a mapping of all my knowledge. So I used to make a mapping of all my knowledge in maybe 3 to 4 columns. But I cannot do that prior having reviewed all the past research at my disposal. This helps me to build hypotheses, research questions, and if you listen to my previous episode, you will know that having research questions and hypotheses and a research statement is the first step before building any kind of research and a script, and ultimately to be able to conduct the research in itself. But to have that, you need to be informed. You need to have context. You need to have a background. And so the 3 columns I'm building anytime I do some secondary research is: what do I know? What do I don't know? And what do I think I know? What are assumptions? Okay? So what do I know could be some facts, insights that have been delivered in the past about our users. We know this already. For instance, we are pretty sure that our users hate subscription model about XYZ, whatever. We are pretty sure that our users want to reach XYZ screen in 2 steps or less, for instance. We know that. And then this can be informed, that I will talk about this, by research repositories, for instance, if you have one inside your company. And if not, you will be tasked to review each research project and report individually. And I highly empathize with you if it's your case. I have been there, done that. So you can build this first category, and then you have a second one, which is: what do I think I know? What are assumptions? So this then is built in 2 ways, in my opinion. Either it's something that is widely shared across the company, supported by facts or not. Some people say it should be supported by facts. I would say yes and no, because if it's supported by facts, then it's something you know. If you have a proof of something, then it's something you know. But sometimes you have things inside of the company that are shared, and that everyone think they know. It's like expert kind of knowledge, but it's kind of sketchy. It's like, oh, we know our users would prefer whatever. We know our users would prefer to go to that category through the screen, whatever. I don't have any example right now, but this is something that everyone is sharing. It's a big assumption inside of the company, but you have no proof to use as a backup, right? So this would go inside the assumptions. And then my second way to come up with these assumptions would be from the facts themselves to derive them into assumptions. So for instance, we know that our users want to reach the XYZ screen in 2 taps or less. Assumption could be, oh, they're oftentimes using this app on the go and they don't have a lot of time. Whatever. This could be an assumption because it's derived from the fact, but you don't have anything to back up that. Third category would be what you don't know. So these are the questions that your stakeholder gave you when starting the research that you want to know, or something that popped into your mind when going through your research review, when going through your desk research. And so that are the main 3 categories. But this is really useful to get everyone on common ground, to refresh a bit the topic and the area for everyone, and for it to be a central source of truth. Imagine we are working on a productivity app and we are working on a screen that is like tasks or main goals. Well, probably there is a whole team dedicated to it, but probably there is a need to have a central source of truth about anything we know about goals inside of a productivity app, so that then we can take it from there, and so that knowledge is not lost. And that's the role and the purpose and the usefulness of a secondary research. So that would be about the benefits. Of course, I also mentioned the aspect of minimizing the costs. And so now, when can you run it? When can you do secondary research? In my opinion, it should be done at any stage. Any stage of research, any stage of the product development life cycle. So in discovery, of course. So yes, at any stage, but it would be more at the stage when you are trying to build something, and because basically at the start of the product development lifecycle, that's where the risk is the biggest. Everything then goes downhill from there. If you make mistakes at the beginning of your process, for instance, if you work on the wrong problem and you make an awesome product, even if the product is awesome but no one wants it, well, you answered the wrong problem. But this is because you made the wrong call at the beginning, and so everything that follows that will be naturally not successful. So that's why I think it's even more necessary to run desk research or secondary research at the start of your product development lifecycle. But then I still think it is valuable to run it at any stage. So imagine you have the discovery stage, you want to build assumptions, you want to know if there is a need from your users, you build you run some discovery research and so on and so forth. But first, before that, maybe you want to analyze the trends in the market. Maybe you want to see what your competitors are doing. Maybe you want to read some literature, scientific literature on the topic to see what are human behaviors around XYZ topic. For instance, if you make an app to help people quit smoking, maybe it would be great to see first if there is a need of an app in itself. Then what are the pain points that smokers go through, and so on and so forth. So that would be for me the most important stage. And then you have the define stage. Once you run your discovery, you will need to come up to synthesize. So with personas, customer journeys, and so on and so forth. So probably here you will identify some gaps in knowledge. Probably you will see, okay, well, I have this persona, I have this customer journey, I have this problem statement. Imagine the problem statement would be something like, we need to make, users of our app would need a driving mode because they are always using it while commuting. I'm saying really random stuff, but this could be a problem statement. And so then driving mode, okay, this opens up some doors, but then you need to know more about that. So you will diverge again, of course, but before that, maybe a literature review or a secondary research would be useful. Okay, what do we know about driving mode? What are the best UX practices? What are competitors doing, and so on and so forth? Do we have something internally about driving modes, about our app that we did or didn't do? Maybe a team that is really far from yours already did some experiments on driving modes. So I'm sorry for the examples. They come up to my mind like instantaneously, and they are not the best, but I really hope you get the idea. So that would be about the when, really at any time. Then if I should follow up on this double diamond process, then there is some diversion states when people create with ideas and so on and so forth. Maybe that's the less used step at which you would do some desk research. Maybe it's not common to do desk research at the stage of ideating, and I would understand that. People just want to create and give their ideas, and then there will be a selection process from that. The selection process can be informed by the trends in the market, can be informed by again literature about what the competitors are doing, and so on and so forth. So for instance, when you prioritize your ideas, one of the processes to prioritize your ideas is in terms of effort and impact. The impact is the impact done on the user experience. So sometimes you give your users some questionnaires to validate that, okay, this idea is more important than the second one and then the third one, for instance, okay? But then for you to build a value proposition, which is the unique selling point of your product or feature, you need to differentiate that with the competitor analysis. You need to see, okay, what am I doing uniquely that my competitors are not doing? And so for that, you have no other way than to run some competitors analysis, which is included in the desk research. And you can also look again into trends. And so it is really an iterative process. Everything in user experience is iteration. Even the research itself, even each step itself can be iterative. So that's really, if there is one thing I want you to get from this episode, is that secondary research should really be done as early and as often as possible. I get it that we don't always have the time to dig into reports and to read, but really the savings you get from that are way worth spending time on that. So, and also the second thing I want you to get from this episode is that anyone can run secondary research. Literally anyone who can read can do secondary research. So that would be that for the benefits. For the when you should run your secondary research, I also defined what is secondary research, and now I will end up with this last section, which is about what resources can you use for secondary research. So again, coming back to the definition, secondary research is any research you do which allows you to get your hands on data that was gathered by someone else. Or also desk research. It's also its name, because you run that at your desk. It's really useful to run it at your desk with a laptop. You have a laptop, an internet connection, and you're all set in. You can run all the research you want in the world. And so, of course, I will cover first the most commonly used one, which is literature review. But you will see, as I was saying at the beginning of this episode, this is not the only source of information you can use to run desk research. So what is literature review? Literature review is the act of reviewing research papers by that were produced by other people, scientists or engineers, anyone closely or remotely connected to research, basically. So someone who did the research. And so this literature review can be conducted through the internet. So for that, you can make use of search engines. The most used one, I would say, probably is Google Scholar. At least this is the one I use. So, and I see everyone I know who does research uses that. So you go to Google Scholar and you enter basically your keywords. So that is one sneak peek from the second episode that I will do on this topic about the how to run secondary research. In my opinion, a good way is to identify a list of keywords about your theme. So probably from this episode, we could use, for instance, driving mode, smoking, productivity, whatever. So you have a list of keywords and then you input them into your search engine when you want to cover some literature review. So you have Google Scholar, but not only. You have also very specialized resources, so Journal of Cognitive Science and so on and so forth. You have Nature, for instance, which is the most the most famous. It is really, really difficult to publish in Nature, and so that would be that for the literature review. I would be really cautious about, because in user experience it's really easy to go glean information in some blog posts and so on and so forth. So I am myself, sometimes I write some blog post articles. However, be really careful about that, about using that information, because oftentimes, myself included, these blog posts are opinions about the writers, myself included, again. So when I wrote some blog posts in the past, I gave my opinion and my way of doing things. It's not necessarily the way. So be careful when you cite something that is coming from a blog post. and make sure you always weigh the information, the trustworthiness of the information. Okay, this is something that has been peer-reviewed, that has been published in an international article and magazine, so probably I should trust it. Okay, be really careful about that. But as I was saying, literature review is not the only source of information. You have also all of the types of sources that you can use. Anything that you can gather information from using your computer is potentially desk research. You also have, imagine, you work as a researcher in a company in which you also have access to support tickets. We call that support tickets. So it's when a customer makes a request or is unhappy about something and calls, well, the customer center and wants some help. Well, everything is recorded. So it's recorded because the companies want to improve their processes. And so this is something that is oftentimes not told to researchers or designers or product managers, but it's something that would be really, really appreciated to gather information from these support tickets. What are customers most unhappy about? Because this is first priority. What customers are unhappy about is the first priority and should be tackled before any other kind of, let's say, moonshot innovation. Then you have the voice of customers, which is also similar, but not exactly the same. So imagine I run an e-commerce website. Oftentimes you have the opportunity to allow customers to leave a review or to leave feedback on the website. There are some forms pre-built for that. Probably you have already been through this experience. You have been asked for your feedback, and it's like maybe 3 question scales. So a numerical scale to give your satisfaction score, your agreement on some criteria. So for instance, to what level do you agree with the following statement, 1 to 10? This website is really easy to use. This website meets my requirements, imagine. And then you will have 2 text fields in which you can input your comments as open-ended questions. So if there is one thing we could do to improve our app, what would it be? Imagine. So this is called voice of the customer. And in general, in companies, this is something that is done, that is owned by another entity. It really depends. So this is in large-scale companies, but if you work in a startup, probably you have access. Everyone has access to that. So make use of that as well, because this is really, really insightful when it comes to what customers are really unhappy about and what they are expecting. And you, of course, have internal papers, internal resources, past research, past reports. You can also send a Slack or a Microsoft Teams to your colleagues to ask them, what do you know about XYZ? And here we enter the realm of interviews, because probably you will have to interview them stricto sensu. So per se, it's more an interview, but it's similar because sometimes they can also send you some reports, so make use of that. Ask them directly. And you will also, of course, have another realm that I will not dive into, but which is called product analytics. So in a nutshell, product analytics is the information you can gather from the usage of your product. And this is behavioral metrics that are quantitative, because they are gathered at a large scale. So imagine cookies, for instance, or any kind of other web analytics. Google Analytics is a good resource for that. Gather behaviors from customers and from users of their platform, basically. So it can be like number of clicks, the path they were taking to go from screen 1 to screen 2, the number of people who dropped out, the number of people who converted. Conversion is when someone takes an action that is intended, that is expected from the customer. So it can be adding something to the cart, and so on and so forth. So you also have this information. So in a nutshell, what are the kind of methodologies you can use and resources? You have the customer service, you have the voice of customer, you have literature review, you have your internal researches and studies, you can ask stakeholders, and you can go through the product analytics. And that is it for today's episode. I really, really hope you learned at least one thing. If this is the case, please subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you don't miss new episodes. Share it with anyone. You can also comment. I would be really, really happy to hear from you. These episodes take me time to prepare, so you could repay me by just subscribing and interacting with me and letting me know what you want me to improve. That would really, really help, because if I know what you are struggling with the most and what you are expecting from this content, I can only make it better. So, promise. So, thank you again for listening, and see you in the next episode. Bye-bye. And that's it for today's episode. Thank you everyone for joining me today on New Exchange. I hope you found today's episode insightful and valuable. Make sure to subscribe in order for you not to miss the next episode. Share it if you liked it, and leave a review. Thank you for your time and attention. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for future topics, feel free to reach out directly to me. You can find all the details in the show notes. And see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.